Welcome to Focus Today. I'm your host, Perry Atkinson. Well, we got some great guests coming up on the program today. First of which, our own Paulina had a chance to talk to Jennifer White, and she's authored a book, Prayers for New Brides. All right, well, I think you'll find this to be interesting. Putting on God's armor after the wedding dress. All right, let's join Jennifer and Paulina.
Well, bridal season is just around the corner, and as a bride myself about 2 years ago, I remember the spiritual battle that went on with that excitement of getting married and finding the one. I think I'm not the only one who'd say that. I think every bride experiences some sort of a battle when she tries to put God in the middle of her relationship and a new family. And that's why I'm very happy that there is a book out called Prayers for New Brides by Jennifer White, and it's available now, and I have it in my hands, and I am super excited to talk to Jennifer about it. And I want to start by talking about the cover, because it really grabbed my attention. First of all, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
On the cover is a bride in her gown, but then she's also wearing a breastplate.
Yes.
Where did you get this idea, and what does it mean?
Well, the full armor of God is what I talk about in the book, and how we have to be armed and ready for the spiritual attack against our marriage. And when we get married, we often are just so excited about being chosen and being in love and the happily ever after that we don't recognize that there is an enemy that really doesn't want our marriage to be wonderful, because when our marriage is wonderful the way God planned for it to be, it can reflect that perfect love, that long and enduring love that loves no matter what, that Jesus offers to his bride. So I wanted the book cover to show that we as brides, we can be very feminine, but with the power of Jesus on the inside of us, we can be very strong.
Does that battle ever stop, or do we have to fight throughout the marriage till the day we die?
Till the day we die.
All right.
I don't think it stops.
So, when did the battle start for you?
Well, I believe the battle started for me generations before I was born. But in my first marriage, I entered marriage as a Christian woman who was deeply in love and thought that I had enough love in my heart to love this man for ever after. But when the marriage got difficult, I began to, in fear that things would not change or would not get better, look for ways to protect myself. And because my parents had been divorced when I was in college, that was fresh on my mind as an option. Not that I ever planned for it to be an option, but I actually even had a Christian counselor tell me that I should consider divorce. So I left that marriage without really asking God what he could do to help us, to heal us, to mend our broken hearts, and to teach us healthy ways to interact with each other. And it wasn't until my second marriage, about 5 years into that marriage, that I began to have those same kind of suffocating feelings like something's wrong and I can't fix it. And thankfully, the Lord led me to finally pray and ask him to help me. And that's really all I knew to do. And he did help me. He helped me in ways I just could not have ever really known to ask him for. And that's how I learned that there was a spiritual battle. I got a wonderful Christian counselor who led me in prayer and taught me biblical foundations. And that's when I realized that we don't wrestle against flesh and blood. I wasn't wrestling against my husband. I was wrestling against the enemy who did not want my marriage to reflect the love of God.
Can you give an example of one of those areas where you felt suffocating? Because I think it might help someone identify those as issues that can be solved.
Well, communication issues and conflict resolution, that was an area that was very problematic for me, because my husband and I both grew up learning to avoid conflict and not resolve it. So we were very nice to each other as far as not fighting, but we didn't know how to communicate. So as a wife, I fell into the temptation of telling other people what was wrong in our marriage or what I was upset about with him instead of communicating it to him. And that just really went against honoring my husband. And I didn't recognize that I was falling into that temptation at the time, but it led me down a road that just led me further into division in our relationship instead of unity.
So do you think, based on your personal experience and the work you've done, any marriage can be saved?
I do believe that. I believe that the Bible says nothing is impossible with God, and with God all things are possible, and that God is able to do exceedingly and abundantly more than we can ask or imagine. And I believe that applies to every single marriage.
So what are some of the ways that you can suggest for a new bride to help make her marriage secure in the Lord?
Well, prayer is what I advocate, because we in and of ourselves, we don't really know what God can do until we ask him to do it. We can ask him to give us wisdom and revelation to recognize what's the root of this problem. Where am I responsible for this problem? Where have I walked away a little bit from, maybe a lot from what God says this is how marriage should be? So I believe that wisdom and revelation is definitely a thing that we should ask God for. And some of the other things we need to ask him for help is particularly one of the things that really led me into this journey that I'm on to recognize the spiritual battle was a prayer actually in Stormy and Martin's book. And the end of the prayer, it says, "Lord, give my husband a new wife and let it be me." And our pride wants us to believe this problem is his problem, and if he will change, then we're going to be okay. And then often as wives, we fall into the trap of setting our sights on helping him change instead of just coming before the Lord and saying, I am broken. I don't know how I'm broken, but I know you can help me to heal, to see where I need your help, and that's what I need you to do, God.
What do you think about premarital counsel? Is there, in your mind, a certain time period that has to pass before marriage should happen?
Oh, I don't know. I think premarital counseling is great, but I believe it needs to be in depth. I think that you need someone who's counseling you, who will ask you some really hard questions and will pray with you and send you off to journal and pray and fast and ask for the Lord to reveal things to you before you get married. But you have to take a chance on marriage. I mean, you definitely want God to give you wisdom and revelation of the red flags that maybe you need to know before you go into marriage or not get married at that time. But you can't just wait until you're perfectly healthy, whole human being to get married. You have to trust that going into marriage, you can go in with God, knowing God is going to be your ever-present help in time of trouble, and he is going to counsel you. He's your wonderful counselor, and he will counsel you in the things that arise in your marriage.
We always have expectations and plans, probably more than God does. How do you find a healthy balance between, your expectations and, should we have expectations? How much of that? Because it seems like the more expectations you have, a lot of the time what I see happen is that the more disappointment you'll have, because those expectations for a new marriage is oftentimes about someone you don't know. So you're really creating some kind of a fantasy in your head. So how do you have healthy expectations?
Well, I think that comes back to prayer, and we can simply ask way before we even get married for the Lord to give us his expectations. And I think that we should go into marriage or wake up today and decide to expect things of God in our marriage but to be willing to be married to an imperfect person and to recognize ourselves as an imperfect person and people that are going to make mistakes, who are broken, who may become broken later, but we can expect the very faithfulness of God at all times.
Jennifer White, author of Prayers for New Brides. The book is now available, and you can go to Jennifer's website, jenniferowhite.com, and I know that there is a page dedicated to this book. As far as your book goes, what is the biggest insight? What is the biggest thing that the brides will gain from reading this?
Well, I share my testimony of how God has shown me how to move into what He says and what He wants for me and what He wants for us and what He can do for us, instead of what the world says, what my parents said, what the counselor says, what my friends say. But most of all, what I'm offering in the book is the biblical wisdom, the counsel of the Lord from the Bible. And I want to help these brides learn what I learned, and that you can search the Word, find the answers, and then pray those things. If God gives us a promise, then we can pray that back to Him and ask Him to fulfill it in our lives. And the rest of our marriage can be this delightful adventure with God, with our husbands, and exploring His Word and exploring His faithfulness and watching Him, asking Him and watching Him be that faithful God in our marriage.
Well, it is a wonderful book filled with scripture and advice and testimonies. I love your one-sentence prayers. I think those are great. Just even have with you, and if something happens, you just pull it out and read those prayers. Thank you, Jennifer, for being with us. Best of luck to you, and let us know if you write another one for the grooms. I think they'll benefit from them as well.
Great. Thank you so much, Paulina.
Fascinating. All right, coming up next, all the years I've been doing interviews on radio and television is one of the most fascinating and inspiring stories I've ever done. And I think you're going to really enjoy it. So stick around. That's coming up next on Focus Today.
Hi, I'm Paulina, and I work at theDove TV. Did you know that when you support theDove TV, you have a profound impact, not only in our community, but around the world? It's your continued support that takes the inspiration and hope in the programs we produce and makes them available to the thousands of people who are watching these videos online every week. Help bring encouragement and hope to our valley and beyond by making a secure online donation today at our website, thedove.us.
Well, welcome back. Earlier, I had a chance to talk to a gentleman. His name is Martin Pistorius. He's authored a book called Ghost Boy, The Miraculous Escape of a Misdiagnosed Boy Trapped Inside His Own Body. That's right. Martin was in a coma for about 10 years. And he came out of that coma. And while he was in the coma, he was totally aware of everything that was going on around him. It's a fascinating story. And when he came out of the coma, he's still unable to talk, so he talks through a talking computer. So we had a chance to send him our questions, and then we asked the questions, and he prepared an answer, and those answers are given to us through his computer. And then there are a couple of times where I was able to ask him a promptu question where he writes out his answer on the computer and is able to answer us that way. So I think you'll find this to be inspiring and yet at the same time a jaw-dropping story. So join me now as we talk to Martin Pistorius. Well, today I have the opportunity to interview somebody that I've been looking forward to talking to for quite some time. His life story is absolutely phenomenal. It's a miracle. And maybe you have heard about him or read about him. His name is Martin Pistorius. He has authored a book entitled Ghost Boy. And his story is fascinating, where he has basically was in a coma for over, since the age of 12, for many, many, many years, and came out of it. And today he's living a normal life. And so we are really honored to have him with us today. And Martin, what What a joy to see you and to have you with us. Thanks for being with us today, and maybe you can help us a little bit. You became ill when you were about 12 years old, and can you remember anything before that?
Thank you. It's a wonderful privilege to be here. No, unfortunately, I can't. However, listening to stories from family and friends, as well as looking at old photographs, I was able to build up a picture of what I was like as a child. While writing my book, Ghost Boy, I spent a lot of time specifically trying to discover what I was like as a child.
Wow. So what initially happened when you became sick? What took place?
As I mentioned, I don't remember it, but apparently I came home from school one day not feeling well. My condition steadily got worse. The doctors ran all kinds of tests, and I tested positive for cryptococcal meningitis and TB of the brain and was treated for both. My body weakened and I lost the ability to control my movements and speak. I slipped away, becoming trapped inside my body. At first I wasn't aware of what was going on, and everyone believed I had the intelligence of a 3-month-old, and my parents were told that they should take me home to die. But I didn't die, and about 4 years later I began to very gradually become aware and conscious of what was going on around me. But nobody noticed I was there.
Wow. Do you remember the first time that you became aware of things going on around you when you became ill?
Yes and no. My awareness was something that happened gradually. So it wasn't like one moment I was asleep and the next moment I was awake. It is quite difficult to describe, but I often say that it is sort of like looking at a grey, completely out of focus image, and then gradually the colors start to flow back, and the image becomes clearer and clearer until it is crystal clear and in vibrant color. As my awareness returned, it took me a while to fully comprehend that I was trapped inside my body. Of course, as the reality dawned on me that not only was I trapped in my body, but that I was probably going to spend the rest of my life in this state was something I really struggled with.
Wow. Here you are, you're fully aware of what's happening, but you're completely unable to do anything about it. That must have been a terrifying experience.
Yes, I don't know if it is possible to truly describe what it was like, but I often say it was like being a ghost, which is why the title of the book is Ghost Boy. You can hear, see, and understand everything around you, but you have absolutely no power over anything. For me, the feeling of complete and utter powerlessness is probably the worst feeling I have ever experienced. It is like you don't exist and every single thing in your life is decided by someone else. Everything, from what you wear to what you eat and drink, even if you eat or drink, to where you will be tomorrow or next week, and there is nothing you can do about it. For me, that was the worst.
I can't fathom that. I'm processing that in my own mind. In the meantime, you dealt with boredom. You talk about you dealt with boredom. You dealt with pain. You even dealt with abuse, sexual abuse at the hands of your caregivers, and yet you trained your mind to cope and to escape. How did you do that?
Mostly through escaping into my mind. I would literally lose myself in my imagination. I'd imagine all sorts of things, like being very small and climbing into a spaceship and flying away, or that my wheelchair would magically transform into a flying vehicle a la James Bond, with rockets and missiles. I also began to take note of how things changed over time. Everything from how the seasons changed to things as simple as watching a wet floor dry, watching how the sun moved across the room and how the light changed. Another favorite of mine was If there happened to be an insect of some or other kind, and even better more than one, then I could pretend they were racing each other. I would literally live in my imagination. I'd have conversations with myself and other people all in my head. I'd imagine I was doing all sorts of things. I would live inside my mind, sometimes to such an extent that I became almost oblivious to my surroundings.
Wow. Boy, there's so much here. Tell us about watching Barney over and over again. That's kind of strange, but how did that happen? What did that mean to you?
I often spent my days positioned in front of the TV watching Barney playing over and over. To this day, I hate Barney. Not that I have anything against Barney, but it triggers memories and emotions which are really difficult for me. It's not just Barney, there are a number of other triggers. But I think in a way because Barney is so happy and jolly, and I wasn't, it made it worse. But yeah, at the same time, I can see the funny side of it now.
Now, for those watching and listening, Martin, we have prepared these questions and answers because he cannot respond normally, so he uses devices to respond. And I just want to ask one little question here, Martin, and maybe you can shake your head yes or no. All this time you're in a coma, is that correct? All this time? Okay, he's got a computer that he's typing his response and it gives it to us. Thank you.
I was in a vegetative state, not a coma, but yes, I was trapped inside my body.
Wow. Talk about the day you heard your mother say that she wished you were dead. How did you feel, and did you ever wish that?
Yes, my mother. I think my entire family was deeply affected by what happened to me. But my mother in particular really struggled to come to terms with it. For her, it was like her son died when he was 12. So while I was very sad and upset by what she said, I understood where that was coming from. It broke my heart in a way, but not so much because of what she had said, but because we were in a situation where she felt that everyone would be better off if I wasn't alive. And yes, at the time, I also often felt everyone would be better off if I were dead. In my book, I talk about the night I even tried to end my own life. Obviously, it didn't work, and for that I am thankful.
Well, we thank God for that. Thank you. Let me ask you one other question before I take a break here, Martin. When you were trapped in your own body, and just before you woke up, what emotions were the most familiar to you? Were the fear, anger, optimism, determination? What were the emotions of your life?
Fear, yes. Fear of what the foreseeable future lay in store for me. The thought of spending the remainder of my life locked inside my body waiting to die, probably all alone in some care home, was often too much for me to bear, and it terrified me, so I tried to avoid thinking about it. No, I didn't really feel anger or resentment, or for that matter determined or optimistic. At that point I had nothing to look forward to, nothing pleasant at least. One of the worst feelings about it was the utter powerlessness. There was absolutely nothing I could do or control, nothing. It's a feeling I don't really think there are words to describe. I often also felt deep despair, frustration and loneliness. I was surrounded by people, but so alone. Later on, of course, when I started to learn to communicate, I felt optimistic and became extremely determined. This was my one opportunity to escape, and I was going to do everything I could to make it work.
Fascinating. All right, let me take a quick break here, Martin, and when we come back, we got some more questions. We're talking to Martin Pistorius, and he's the author of this book, Ghost Boy, The Miraculous Escape of a Misdiagnosed Boy Trapped Inside His Own Body, literally for years. It's put out by Nelson Books. Let me encourage you to check it out at the bookstores, Amazon, Barnes & Noble. An incredible story, and as we talk to Martin, you'll see that he's unable to respond in his own language and speech, so he talks through a talking computer, and he's telling us his story. We'll take a quick break and we'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Paula and I work at theDove TV. Every day we get letters and emails from people who've been encouraged, blessed, and challenged by the programs on theDove TV. But we couldn't do it without you. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us continue to bring inspiration and hope to our community by making a secure online donation at our website, thedove.us, or call us at 541-776-5368.
Okay, we're back today, and we are so honored to have with us a very special guest. Martin Pistorius was with us today, and his own personal story is just unbelievable. It's miraculous, where he spent years in a coma as a young boy, and he came out of it. And while he was in a coma, he was very aware of all the things that were going on and being said around him, and he's sharing that story with us today. It's also in book form. It's entitled Ghost Boy, The Miraculous Escape of a Misdiagnosed Boy Trapped Inside His Own Body. And there's a picture of it there on the screen. It is put out by Nelson Books, and let me encourage you to check it out online. At Barnes & Noble, also at the bookstores. I think you'll find it to be very, very inspiring. And again, Martin today is unable to talk to us normally with speech, so he talks to us through basically his talking computer. And we've kind of prearranged some of these questions with him today so he can express to us his thinking and his feelings. And again, thank you, Martin. What an honor to have you. Well, this whole story has just got me on tilt, but all right. Let's go up to your recovery. Tell us about your recovery. I just can't imagine you sensing all of that, being in a coma, and now you're coming out of it. Tell us about your recovery.
I was taken for testing in 2001, where communication experts discovered that I could indeed understand what was going on around me and could even respond to basic commands. It took me a while to get the right equipment and to learn how to use it. So at first I was kind of limited to saying very basic things like saying I am uncomfortable or I would like something to drink. As I became better at using my communication system, I could say more and start to share my thoughts and feelings. As my mind grew stronger, my body slowly got stronger too. Being able to communicate opened up a new world for me, and it changed everything. New opportunities, new stimulation, new situations and experiences. It gave me and the people around me new motivation. It took a massive amount of work, literally blood, sweat and tears, over many years, and it is something I have to constantly work at, but I am a different person than I was 13 years ago.
I can't imagine what your family thought when you snapped out of it. How did you communicate and express some of your basic needs when that happened?
First a basic communication book with pictures and then later a computer. It was really exciting. As I mentioned, it took quite some time to learn how to express more than just my basic needs. But even the smallest things were big victories for me. I mention it in the book. But I don't think I will ever forget that feeling when my mom asked me what I'd like for supper, and I said spaghetti bolognese, and then she actually made that. I know that must seem insignificant, but for me that was amazing.
Wow. In some ways, Martin, you were learning, or maybe relearning, everything from reading to socialization. How did you find the strength to do that?
Yes, it was extremely challenging having to learn everything again. At times it was scary too, but very exciting and exhilarating as well. I don't know where I found the strength. I was extremely determined. I worked and fought really hard to get to where I am today. But as strong as I am, this was too big, and I can only say that the strength must come from God. I couldn't have done this on my own.
Wow. So as you're coming out of it and you're beginning to regain your life and communication skills and socialization skills, I would assume also that's a lonely time. Did you ever think that you'd be alone forever?
Yes, I did. And then I was very lucky and truly blessed. Joan and I met over Skype. On New Year's Day, my sister and her flatmate invited friends over. My mom and my sister were talking over Skype. My sister lived in England at the time. My sister thought it would be fun to introduce her family to everyone. I had my back to the computer at the time, and I remember turning around and there Joan was. We got chatting. Everyone else drifted away, and before we knew, hours had flown by. It is quite a long story which I describe in detail in my book. But we instantly had a connection and both knew there was something special between us.
And then comes your wife, right? Congratulations. Oh, that's wonderful. How do you communicate with your wife now? You have a love affair through a computer? Excuse me for asking, but how do you do that?
My wife, Jonah, and I have an amazing connection and often communicate simply with a look, facial expression, or gesture. It is almost like we are connected. I can't tell you how often it happens that I will think something and Jonah will say it. But apart from that, I use a variety of different technologies to communicate depending on where I am and what the situation is. To create my voice, I either use a computer with the Grid software or my iPad with a specialized communication app. I also use an Alpha Smart Neo, which is basically just a small keyboard with a display screen. I sometimes use my phone too if one of my other devices is not freely available.
Wow. Her nickname must be Angel. Have they made any discovery on your illness? I mean, looking back now, and obviously you're probably being examined by the medical community. Have they come up with any discoveries about your illness?
It is actually, apart from testing positive for tuberculosis of the brain and cryptococcal meningitis, there has been no conclusive diagnosis. To be honest, the mystery behind illness doesn't bother me at all. I am who I am and I'm okay with that. I don't really dwell on the past or even really think about it. I live and enjoy life as much and as best I can.
Fascinating. How would you describe your life now? I mean, all these years later, looking back, obviously God is using you, using your book, using your testimony, but how would you describe your life?
Life is fantastic. I became an author and my book Ghost Boy has, thankfully, been well received and is currently on the New York Times bestseller list. I was also fortunate enough to be able to study and graduate with a degree in computer science. My hand control and upper body strength has improved, and I recently got my driver's license. But really, Jonah and I live quite a simple life in the UK. We go to the movies as often as we can. We love taking long walks together and visiting interesting and historic places. And now we're talking about starting a family. That's something we're really excited about. Life really is wonderful. I am truly happy now. Life is worth living again.
Wow, that's wonderful. You know, Martin, we live in Oregon. That's where we are here in Oregon. And we have a law. They call it the doctor-assisted suicide law. And in light of that and what's happened to you, how would you view that subject?
These are complex issues, and I think that each situation is unique, each medical case different. I was not in a hospital being tested for brain activity by doctors or being kept alive by feeding tubes or ventilators. Given what I have been through, I can, to a degree, see both sides of the argument, but find it very hard for me to enter such a loaded debate and don't know if I am wise enough to comment. What I would say is that I feel there is always hope, no matter how faint and distant it may seem. Life can be both precious and fragile.
You know, I say a lot on this show, whatever God has saved you from or brought you through, He turns you around and makes you a minister to, and you obviously are doing that. And I know we didn't pre-ask this question, but just give me a little feeling. How's your faith today?
Stronger than ever. I feel I have been so blessed in so many ways. Stronger than ever. I feel I have been so blessed in so many ways.
Well, you know, what's so fascinating is that not only your story, obviously, which is breathtaking, but you're able to use today's technology in such a remarkable way. Martin, what do you want people to get from your book? This is fabulous. What do you want people to take away from your book?
Treat everyone with kindness, dignity, compassion, and respect, whether you think they understand or not. Never underestimate the power of the mind or the importance of love and faith, and to never stop dreaming.
You know, you're an inspiration. Thank you. And it's been an honor to have you, and I can't help but think you're being used mightily of the Lord. Thank you, Martin. Thank you for writing the book. Thank you for being courageous to talk so transparently about all of this. I think you give a lot of hope to a lot of people. And give your wife a hug for us, okay? I'm pretty sure you're good at that. All right, thanks for being with us today. Okay.
Thank you for having me on the show. It's been a privilege to be here. God bless.
Fascinating story. Ghost Boy, the miraculous escape of a misdiagnosed boy trapped inside his own body, Martin Pistorius. And from the age of 12 for the following 10 years, he was basically in a coma, and yet he was aware of what was going on around him. And then coming out of that and regaining his life and going on to be married. So I think you'll find this to be pretty inspiring. So you may want to look it up at the bookstores. It's out by Nelson Books, or you can certainly check it out at Barnes & Nobles or Amazon. fascinating story. All right, we'll take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Daniel and I work at theDove TV. You know, compared to Portland, Seattle, and LA, Medford might be considered a small market, but at theDove, we're excited about the opportunity to make a big impact right here in our community. And you help make that happen. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us now by making a secure online donation at our website, thedove.us, or by phoning 541-776-5368.
Well, welcome back. I want to take a few moments, the remaining portion of today's Focus Today, and just kind of give you a ministry update on where we are here at theDove and some of the things that are going on. And as you know, it's been a pretty exciting time, especially this past year, where theDove has been able to move into its new facility. And I can't tell you how excited we are, how humbled we are by all of this. And we've built the wall and the electrical's done, and it's just been a remarkable experience, to say the least, and what a great tool that is now in our hands to continue to produce some incredible programs. And we are now in that process of working on some ideas to produce programs that can not only air on the Dove network, but other networks as well. In the middle of all that, as you know, our main television computer decided to die. We weren't planning on that. You know, I don't think anybody ever really is when those things happen. And you were so gracious to help us replace that. The new computer is in the house, and it has been mounted and on the racks, and our team is in the process now of downloading a lot of material and files and information into that computer. And that's still going to take quite a while to do, to get it all sorted out and make sure that it's working. And then our team goes into a training process to learn how the new software really does work. And we'll actually be running parallel systems for a little while before we actually switch over to the new one. But it's here, it's working. They're in the process of totally getting it installed. And hopefully within the next several weeks, we'll get all the bugs worked out, and we'll be operating on the new system. And I just want to say thank you so very much for your faithfulness in helping us with that. It's been a remarkable time here at theDove, and the programming response to theDove from all over the listening and viewing area has never been greater. It's just remarkable to see the type of response that we get from the programs that people hear and how they're ministering to people. Our devotional, The Word for You Today, reaching so many people, not only throughout our listening and viewing area, but literally around the world. It's an interesting time to be ministering. And there's no question about it that we believe, and I believe personally, that the mission field to America and beyond is through media. It is the tool that God has put into our hands to reach people with the gospel. And when you partner with theDove, you make that happen on a 24/7 basis, whether it's radio or television or through all the digital platforms. The gospel is going out in remarkable ways, and only God can match the content of a program with a person's need at the right time. And that's the one testimony that we hear over and over and over again, that they just happen to be watching, or they just happen to be listening to a program that ministered to them. Well, we don't believe that it's coincidence. We believe it's divine appointment, and that the Lord takes the programming content and matches it with the person's need at the right time. And that's the miracle that happens every day here at theDove. And your support makes that happen. On the financial things, we coming in a little short for March. We're down about 22%. And that's significant for us because, like any ministry that's out there, our budget's tight too. And so we just ask you to prayerfully consider, if you didn't send in your gift this month, pray about that. If you've never supported theDove, maybe the Lord is leading you to be a partner with us in this ministry. So many do believe in the mission and the message of theDove, and they come alongside to help us get it out. Because about 86–87% of our income here at theDove is from viewers and listeners. The rest comes through some programming sharing and some television advertising on the TV side, but no advertising on the radio side. So it's a very complex, very complicated system that goes on here, with 4 radio stations, 6 translators, 2 television stations, and then a variety of cable networking and Roku and uplinking with the web online through the web. All of these are just tools in our hands now that God has placed there to reach people. And the scripture that kind of ties it all together for us, you've heard me share it before, but boy, is it ever true. It's found in two places, Romans 10:20 and Isaiah 65, and it says this, I was found by those who were not seeking me, and I manifested myself to those who did not ask. Now, how does that happen? Only God can take the content of a program, whether it's radio with all the great teaching programs that we have, and the music and the commentaries and the little vignettes, or on the television side with a variety of unbelievable programming. God will match that content with the person's need. And when they're not even looking to find God, they see Him and experience Him through the programming, and He manifests His love to them. I can't tell you how many people who are discovering the love of God for the first time by what they hear and see on the Dove. And so it's a remarkable time in which we live. It seems like the crazier the world gets, the more upside down things become, the out of control, the unbelievable messes that the world seems to be in. And these are certainly biblical moments. There's no question in my mind. We're living in a biblical moment in history. People are now beginning to turn and say, well, I think I'll give this Christian thing a try. And they'll listen or they'll watch, because media is private and you can listen and watch when you want to. And God begins to use the content to minister to them. A lot of folks who have a lot of burdens and are heavy and with all kinds of decisions and things going on in their life, they find the strength through the programming on the Dove 24/7. So we're asking you, if you've never supported the Dove, pray about partnering with us. And I say a couple things about supporting the Dove. Number one, make sure God's calling you to do it. And number two, make sure it's a joy for you to do it. Now, don't take from your church. And don't take from any other ministry that the Lord has you involved in. That's your first obligation. But if you find yourself getting encouragement and getting affirmation and help from the content that you hear or see on the Dove, understand that it's there because of the generosity of so many people on a monthly basis that help us broadcast. And we couldn't be on the air without it. It just wouldn't happen. It just wouldn't happen. So it's a miracle that happens here every month. So we are down a little bit this month. So if the Lord's leading you, you can call us anytime. The number here at the Dove is 541-776-5368. Or it's easier, you can certainly go to our website. And the website is totally safe and secure, and you can support the Dove there. And again, we don't share your name with anybody like that. We keep that very confidential. But it's through your generosity and your obedience to the Lord in supporting the Dove that makes this miracle happen every day, 24/7. And I wish you could read some of the letters. They're very confidential, but I wish you could read some of the letters and how the Dove is ministering to people. I don't think there's a day or an hour that doesn't go by where somebody isn't ministered to in a remarkable way, and folks actually coming to Christ by what they hear and see on the Dove. And your support makes that happen. So thank you. And to the many of you who have been supporting us through the years, those of you who support us month in and month out, I can't tell you, when I sit down and I do the management part of the Dove and I look at all of the reports and the things that we deal with, I am constantly stunned at your faithfulness, and I just want to say thank you. We pray for you. We really do. We pray that the Lord will return it to you in ways that only He can. Maybe it's through good health. Maybe it's through a raise. Maybe it's through a circumstance getting straightened out, whatever that case may be. But we believe that when you invest in the Dove, that the Lord does return it to you in ways that only He can do it. So we need your help when you can do it, when you feel led to do it. You can call us at 541-776-5368, or you can support us online. It's real safe and secure there at thedove.us. So thank you. Thank you so much for believing in, praying for, and supporting the Dove. And we can't wait till we get all the things worked out. We're going to have the open house, have you come over and see what the Lord's doing here. But thank you for your faithfulness and supporting the Dove. God bless you. We'll see you next time on Focus Today.
Hi, I'm Jim and I work at the Dove TV. Every weekday between 6 and 8 a.m., our award-winning news and sports team bring you the best morning show around. It's live, it's honest, and it's a whole lot of fun. And you help make it happen. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us continue to air local programs that share your voice by making a secure online donation at our website, theDove.us.